This is Starting Point, a podcast that tracks Guyana's unprecedented growth from all vantage points. Join your hosts, Kiana Wilberg and Fareeza Haniff, as they dive deep into the heart of topical issues.
Hi there. Welcome to another episode of Starting Point. I'm your host, Fareeza Haniff. Today, our guest is no stranger to the President Irfan Ali administration. As a matter of fact, in 2020, she was appointed as the Minister of Tourism, Industry and Commerce. And now she has been appointed to a much larger portfolio, a portfolio that's responsible for the country's national security. Minister Oneidge Walrond. Minister, thank you for joining us in Starting Point. It is an honor to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me here, and good morning to your viewers, your listeners, and it's a pleasure. Looking forward to this conversation. I've seen the great work that you and Kiana have been doing with this podcast, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. You know, Minister, as we are sitting here talking to each other, I remember in 2020 when you were first appointed, you were a new name and a fresh face, and many people were not really familiar with you. And during one of your first sit-down interviews, the journalist asked you a question about how would you manage a home as a woman and manage a ministry. And that journalist received a lot of flack for the question because it came across as sexist. And we're here again today, where immediately after you were appointed as the Minister of Home Affairs, questions started to circulate as to whether you, being a woman, would command the respect of the joint services. How have you been able to address your naysayers?
I, in large part, ignore that kind of feedback. I believe, and my career has taught me, has reinforced that point, that the success speaks for itself. Your deliverables speak for itself, and the work speaks for itself. And so I don't listen to those kinds of noise and internalize any of it. I'm confident in my abilities. I know who I am. I know what I don't know. I'm humble enough to seek advice where it's needed. And I believe my entire life has been always pushing against that kind of rhetoric. When I joined the bench, I was extremely young, tender age, and one of the things that the panel of older men told me is that you're not ready for this. You don't have the life experience to take up a big role as a magistrate. You have to be able to command the respect, and you wouldn't know how to adjudicate. And I said to them, well, give me a year and assess my performance. And it was one of the first times where a magistrate was given just a year contract, to assess. And 7 years later, I left on my own terms. That is the magistracy, because they saw the work in which I delivered. So I believe that it's not a gender thing necessarily. We have to push against gender biases, and it's not just in Guyana. And so wherever it is, I'm always aware that that is something that culturally people may tend to think that it's a disadvantage, but that is the best place to be when people underestimate you and underestimate your abilities. Is to remain quiet and do the work.
Keep your head down and do the work.
And that is what we'll continue to do in this portfolio.
And the results will speak for itself.
Results will speak for itself.
As you have been doing since you were appointed to the bench.
Resoundingly, the results will speak for themselves.
Minister, I know you've only been at the ministry for a few weeks. It's just a month and change at the Ministry of Home Affairs. Part of the president's vision is to digitize this country.
Yes.
And the Ministry of Home Affairs is no exception. What have you been able to kickstart at the ministry as it relates to that aspect of the plan?
Yes. So we have started already. We've launched the Immigration Services, which is a service that we're deploying from the ministry building itself. This is visitors, visas, job permits, extensions, and so you found there were large crowds of people outside of the ministry every morning, and they had to come with their application form, or they come to inquire, and they sometimes I got reports of pushed around, shoved around,
Yeah.
because some of them don't understand English, or they don't understand the system, how to navigate, who to go to, who to talk to. And this is one of the issues that the president had highlighted very early, removing the human bias, the human
Yes.
element, the allegations of people using the opportunity to extort unsuspecting clients. And so 2 weeks ago, we digitized the ministry with the support of NDMA, the entire process. So now the client doesn't have to interface with a human being until they're coming to make their payment, and even that can be made via MMG.
Correct.
But there is a specific number code to the application form, so it's no longer somebody signing and say, well, you have you have an application that can be used. Sometimes it's done fraudulently, and so that has removed the crowds. It has removed all of the human element in it. And what we have done is we have put computers, 2 persons downstairs, to assist those of the clients who wouldn't necessarily have a computer or not aware, just to help with that transition. And so we do help them to do the application online right there. So all communications are now going to be done via email. The person who is communicating, who has been assigned that case, in the officer has a unique code, so we know which officer to hold accountable, and they have to take that case to the end in its entirety. We have guaranteed a 2-day turnaround in terms of responses to increase the efficiency, so people are not left wondering and concerned. I'm we've seen the impact already. We are taking the numbers now, so we can actually report on the data and how many applications we have been processing, and we've been able to process through this system. We've had a tremendous backlog, and the system has been able to push that along. So that is one success story immediately at how digitization can really impact people and the services and increase efficiency. We're seeing that right now.
And when that announcement was made, there was some confusion that it's the passport office that's now taking applications online. That is not the case as yet.
Not yet.
Right. But how soon can we see that coming to the fore?
So the president has announced that by the end of the year, we are going to see a fully online passport application process. That we have gone a far way with the contractor in terms of digitizing. The biometrics system has started already in the passport office, but where the service is fully online, that is, and I'm looking forward to that. That is going to be at the end of the end of the year. So we are expecting to see that. We're currently in talks. That contract still is in existence, and no, we've had some setbacks, but the timeline for the end of the year is achievable, and we are going to see that.
Okay. So, Minister, one of the things that I wanted us to talk about has to do with bribery, and we have seen the Ghana Police Force advising members of the public to report those cases of officers' ranks accepting bribes, and also discouraging citizens themselves from offering bribes to the police ranks. What assurances can you give that these reports are taken seriously, and how can we prevent this from occurring going forward?
Under my leadership, I can assure the public that they will be taken seriously. Even if it's a $200 bribe to a $200,000 bribe or $200 million, it is a scourge in this society that we have to tackle head on. It is has been in the past a little too casually, and we have seen how it breaks down the authority of the police when people feel that they can bypass and break laws by passing a dollar. And I've sent the message, I believe, to the public, but for sure, certainly to the leadership, that there is no tolerance for those kinds of things. And I have had the concurrence of the leadership that these things ought to be addressed. I encourage the public, when they see these kinds of things, speak up. Certainly if the report gets to my office, it will be treated with. We've already had to deal with some of these instances. Take the pictures, do the record the thing with this. Policing is a partnership with the citizens where we don't allow certain discourage to continue to grow. We have to take a stand. And a lot of that is when you see something, say something. It's speak up. And for sure, these complaints will not fall on deaf ears under my leadership.
And I'm sure the introduction of body cams have been able to assist in this regard. Have we seen any success stories from the introduction of the body cameras?
Certainly,
Yeah.
certainly. And, admittedly, as I make my rounds around the police force and all the other, the joint services as a whole, I can see there's some resistance to the recordings, using the body cam and how we have the police, they have SOPs in regard. The body cam should always be on if you're on duty. And we've seen some of the resistance. So I know then it's the right thing.
It's the right thing.
It's the right thing.
Now,
yeah.
one of the things I'm trying to understand, and I'm hoping you can clarify for me, how does the body cameras work? I mean, in a general sense, we know how it works, but in terms of the storage of the footage, is it done manually? Is there a process where the footage for a particular rank or all ranks across the board are reviewed at the end of the day? Or is there a live feed into a control room? If you could just explain that.
So what they have reported to me that they've been doing, and we've seen the success of this, is not every day the recording of the police is taken. If there is a particular campaign, a traffic campaign, the traffic ranks, for instance, is on the road, they take the hours of footage and they're able to they're able to identify those who have used the roads illegally, those of the infractions, and then use those to pursue the case from the footage. Each region has a command center, so to speak, where the footage is stored.
Okay.
And so it's always there. The footage is always there.
And it's done manually at the end of the day?
When you say manually,
Okay,
it's
so they take out the card and
they
they
download the
it.
footage.
Correct.
Yes, yes. So that command center, they have the capacity to keep that footage and store it. That is, so each region has that command, that center that is. The most times it's to aid with transparency as well. So it's not every day that you're viewing the footage, but the footage has to be available for viewing at any time that the police would like.
Because we don't know who's going to make a report against a particular police
exactly.
officer.
Yes. So it's keeping that accountability.
Is there a mechanism in place to safeguard against deleting of any footage?
Absolutely. The SOPs, it's actually an offense that you can be disciplined for. The SOPs are very clear about that you should not delete or turn off at any time when you are the body cam is on. It's a change in culture.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's certainly been embraced by the leadership because it certainly helps with accountability, and it's the ranks on the road, getting used to it, and different places like at the airport, putting it in critical junctures like that where people can be assured that anything that happens, and we're seeing how the recordings are working in our favor in terms of crime fighting. So the body cams, we're going to expand that program in the coming year, this new budget, because it certainly works. It removes this element of eyewitnesses, and which can be flawed in its own right, and everything is just, it's recorded there. So the idea is to keep, while the police officer is also aware that his or her actions are going to be recorded as well.
Correct.
That helps the decision, the policymakers, the decision makers, the leadership in terms of how we treat with that officer.
What happens to an officer if he or she deletes footage from the cam, if you found that to be the case?
The SOP determines that it's an offense, that under the police rules you can be charged, surcharged, so disciplinary matters, you can, and as a result of a disciplinary proceedings, you can be demoted. So it's a very, the police force treats it very seriously.
Seriously?
Yes.
Okay. And still on the topic of police officers, Guyana Police Force, Minister, we've seen in recent times some of these ranks come under attack from citizens as they try to execute an arrest or any little thing that may, be blown out of proportion. What measures are in place to prevent this and to ensure that the respect for law enforcement is maintained?
Yes. That's a very important question, especially in light of the policy of the police force and law enforcement in our country, that we try to de-escalate.
Yes.
It's not about confronting. You don't have to walk with a big firearm to do ordinary policing. It's about de-escalating, and so it's quite worrying when you find the members of the public feel that they can take advantage because the police are trained to not confront with violence. And we have seen in other jurisdictions where police use lethal force on citizens, that there are parts of the world that you won't dare speak up to a police.
Correct.
You're pulled over, and if you just reach over, it looks as though you're reaching for a firearm, you get shot. And we are so blessed in this country to not have to face those kinds of things with the police force, and I think we sometimes take it for granted. But ultimately, we don't plan to change our direction in terms of how we address policing, that it's done in a manner where violence is the last option. And we will continue to use cameras, the digital, the technology to deal with people who feel that they can, and treat with it very seriously and forcefully in the courts.
Let's talk about drugs, Minister. It's no secret Guyana continues to face its own unique challenges with drugs proliferation. Do you have any new strategy or approach that you want to introduce to tackle this?
You're talking about the use of drugs.
The use of drugs, the importations and the smuggling.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I sat on the bench, it was one of the issues, and I see that we have tackled and had to grapple with, because what you find is that the smugglers are the ones that are being caught, but the masterminds are the ones that are still out there. And because you know that a person can't afford millions of US dollars of cocaine if they're brought before the courts, and swiftly they're passed through the courts, and then you would leave the mastermind to come up with another scheme and then another scheme. We continue to invest in resources to detect, especially at our ports, finding drugs in our airport, leaving Guyana is a scourge on our image. And so measures are put in place to make sure that it's detected before, and so a lot of resources and police work and intelligence goes to detecting these things before they happen, and we've seen the successes in that regard. KANU has seen, and the Guyana Police for Narcotics Division has seen tremendous success in detecting and the movement and proliferation of drugs. We have resisted at our borders, and we've seen with success Guyana becoming a narco state, and we continue to invest lots of money as a government in these efforts so that our image is protected, and whenever we unearth find that as many persons as possible are penalized, and you see them coming to the courts. But there is still an issue of getting the big kahunas, the big drug dealers.
Big fish.
Yeah, the big fish, and that is because of fear, the witnesses not willing to come forward. That has always been the issue. But we continue to work assiduously, and I believe I've seen the reports from the Kanu and the Narcotics Division and the works and efforts they've put towards intelligence and circumvent. A lot of times, a lot of the drugs that are circumvented, we are not even aware of as members of the public. So they're doing a tremendous work.
Yeah, Kanu would have also found some new strains of drugs in Ghana as well, and they try to figure out where it's coming from.
Yes.
So work is ongoing in that regard.
Yes, absolutely. The early detection, being on the lookout, lots of covert operations that is ongoing. It's very important.
And drugs also add to our crime stats. And that's one of the things I want us to talk about a little. What can you tell us about the crime stats for this year compared to the same period last year? Have we seen an increase in serious crimes?
Actually, I'm happy to report that there has not been an increase in serious. In fact, we are seeing a 25% decrease in serious crimes in Guyana from last year. And what we have seen is while serious crimes, which the elements of the serious crimes in which, just for the public, we're talking about murder, robbery with firearm, robbery with aggravation, robbery with violence, executions, and larceny from the person. Those kinds of offenses, which we consider, they're all lumped into serious offenses.
Rape as well?
Rape,
Yeah.
that's right. And the burglary. So those kinds of offenses are lumped and called serious offenses, and as a whole, we are seeing a decrease in those offenses. What we're seeing in the increases is the murder. And when you disaggregate the instances of murder in which there is an increase, is the domestic murder. So it's not where somebody is walking, execution type murders that you would find with gang wars and that kind of thing. You're finding the increase is based on domestic situations, and of course that speaks to the domestic violence. And so we've seen an increase in that regard. And so this helps us to know that we have to target our efforts to decreasing those, and to domestic violence now has to be a priority in terms of our policing and how we target those. Guyana's murder rate in terms of solving murder is at 75%, which is the highest in the region. The second highest in the region is 63%. So we are way up there. And the reason for that is because most of the murders are conducted by a family member, spouse, or so that is something that we have to continue to tackle.
Yeah, a majority of times these persons are arrested.
Yes, exactly. And so the murder is solved.
You touch on domestic violence, and that is a scourge that's affecting our country for years and years. Some progress has been made in apprehending perpetrators and helping to mend relationships and counseling and all of those things. But you spoke recently about ankle monitors. Can you explain that concept? Because that would be a new concept to us here in Guyana. Is it seriously being considered? And if it is, how soon can it be implemented? How will it be introduced?
Well, it's a conversation that I have started. It will certainly need the ratification of Cabinet.
Correct.
When it's fully fleshed out, the concept. I see it as one other layer in tackling the issue of domestic violence before it becomes a murder or serious So what you find is that the victim will complain that this man is constantly violating the protection order. The protection order would most times say that you're not allowed to go within 500 yards of this woman, and if you do so, you can be arrested. Of course, there are complaints that when I make a report that he is still coming in my vicinity and still approaching me, that there is not rapid enough of a response. And sometimes there isn't time to respond. Sometimes he approaches and that's it.
And that's it.
That's it. So the conversation that I have started, and I'm still to interrogate it fully, is to flesh it out, is to have a way to monitor when he approaches or she approaches, whomever the perpetrator is, within the boundary, beyond the boundary that is permissible, and that sets off the GPS, the target on the tracker, and this, I believe, sets off the alarm. Police is alerted after the requisite training. I believe that will not only he is aware that it will be known that you have approached this young lady. Another approach that we have also been discussing is the app on the phone, where it's operates like a 911. It's not connected to data. A panic button where she sees or feels threatened, sees the person about to violate this protection order, about to approach, to press the panic button, and that sets off an alarm. We already have the command center, so the technology is there, so the people can respond. You can see, so that sends a message straight to the command center that this woman is in distress, where she is. So she doesn't have to find a police person. She doesn't have to pick up a phone, hope the phone is answered at the police station. Immediately, that panic sets in an emergency response. That panic. I believe both of these things are achievable. We'll take minor tweaks in the law, as we have it already, in terms of the curbing and monitoring of the thing. So these are the two solutions that I am currently exploring.
I think the ankle monitor is an impressive idea. It's just you need to flesh it out as to how you can mark off where these boundaries are, because it's not just a house that you have to stay away from. It's the person.
Yes.
And that person moves.
Yes.
So if one is following the other, there must be some connection to say, well, this person is violating the protection order.
Right. She will have to carry some sort of tracker on her as well, that is attached to the phone.
Correct.
And yes.
So all of those will be fleshed out as you...
Yes, definitely you have to flesh. And then we will have to get the approval of Cabinet. But it's just trying to find, and to get the laws altered in that regard. But it is just trying to think of ways in which the victim person feels protected, that he or she can go about their daily lives and feel that that I feel safe. That's the ultimate. So just listening to people putting forward solutions on this issue. It is a problem. So as many solutions as can be put forward by public person, I'm willing to examine all of it.
Correct.
And try to see which ones can be implemented quickly and which ones are more going to be efficient.
All with the aim of keeping our women safe.
Yes,
indeed.
absolutely.
Minister Walrond, the Vice President spoke a few weeks ago about the issuance of gun licenses. We've seen over 30,000 applications are on file. And he spoke about a need for alternatives.
Yeah.
And I think he gave an example of like a stun gun. Can you say how many people have been issued gun licenses in the past 5 years?
Yes.
And has there been a pause right now in the issuing of gun licenses as you begin to flesh out what the alternatives will be?
So for the past 5 years, there's been about over 10,000 gun licenses been given out from the records that I've been able to look at. Yes. So there has not been a deliberate decision to halt the issuing of gun license from the time that I got into, had taken over the helm of the ministry. The board had to be renewed, and so that has just been done. And indeed, looking at the non-lethal weapons regime, what that can look like, we have just started that. That's a policy direction that government wishes to take. It just seems inconceivable you want to issue 30,000 gun license to people. So we have to examine why is it that people feel that they need firearms, and why is it that, and maybe these non-lethal weapons could provide an answer for the safety and security. The truth is, in Guyana, our serious crimes and robbery with firearm and those kinds of, it's on the decline. And we have been able to identify hot spots, so where it's likely that the incident may occur in that area. So we're able to warn citizens, you don't go certain areas at certain times of the night, and our visitors as well. So the need to walk with a firearm to every day, all day, to protect yourself may not necessarily hold any muster anymore as serious crime goes down and we're targeting hot spots and with more police presence and those kinds of things. But yes, we have to look at a policy in which the non-lethal weapons are not being used.
Yeah, it could be issued.
Yeah.
I know the government is rightfully concerned about the regulation on issuing gun licenses and who gets what gun, because most of the times these weapons end up in the hands of criminals. Somebody breaks into your house and steal your weapon and they're gone with it. But is there a plan in place to rid the streets of illegal weapons? And have you been able to see a report as to how many illegal weapons have been recovered from off the streets?
This is something that I'm surprised that you ask. It is something that I've had a discussion with the commission with, a question that I myself have had. Where is the report in regards to the firearm? How many illegal firearms you've been able to get off the road? It's something that they are still dealing with, grappling with. He acknowledges that they need to do better, to do more. In relation to last year, in terms of the same time last year, the stats were looking better in terms of the numbers of illegal firearms they've been able to take off the streets in this time last year, and he was saying that they have to redouble efforts, and gave me the assurance that this is something that they're definitely going to do, to redouble efforts to take the illegal firearm off of the road. So it's an active conversation that just started yesterday, what those measures are going to be. He is going to be reporting to me what is the plan of action in tackling these.
I know a few years ago we had introduced gun amnesty. You come in and you submit your illegal weapon and there are no charges. Is that something that you're considering again?
It's something that is definitely not off the table. I will have to examine what, if any, it might be the reluctance to do that again. But it absolutely should not be off the table.
Yeah. I remember a case where some people would drive by the police station, just throw the weapon in the compound and continue.
Yes, there is that now with the CCTV cameras. They may be a little more reluctant to say, okay, we can be detected. So I could already start to see what might be the hesitancy with persons buying into the program, but it's some sort of amnesty should always be considered.
Correct.
Should always be in play. The ability, the place, a safe place for someone to, if they have an illegal firearm, to say, I just want to drop this off, deploy it. So it's a discussion we will continue. I will report on that at another time
Of
as we
course.
speak.
Sure, we will hear about more
Yeah.
of it. I know the juvenile offenders program is something that's very near and dear to you. You're taking steps at overhauling this program, taking steps rather. Um, what exactly are you overhauling in the program? What specifically are you targeting? And can you share some of your insights on that?
So it's not an overhaul in that regard, because the overhaul legislation is already in place, the Juvenile Justice Act of 2018. And when I sat on the bench, then that overhaul started in the sense that we knew we needed to change the law, the criminalization of young people who were sometimes were displaced, wandering the streets, hanging out in the street corners. They were criminalized. And so that overall has happened, how we deal with children who come in contact with the law and in conflict with the law, and should not treat with them as criminals, but as children who need extra guidance. And so the law is already in place. What has happened is there are certain measures in the law that, especially the diversion program. Diversion program speaks of children who you can see that they are they may become in conflict with the law. They are at that vulnerable stage, but to put in an active, structured program where they are diverted from a life of crime. And so the act had already provided for that, except that it wasn't yet implemented. So those kinds of measures to actively implement the law that is already being provided for. So we have the diversion program that's going to be starting, the roundtable for the discussion to get people and organizations on board that can help structure programs for juveniles, partnering with our Human Services, Ministry of Human Services, Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, for other kinds of programs that can help to divert the juvenile from that life of crime. To have a process in-house. These things are all provided by the Juvenile Justice Act. The child does not have to be, if he or she, there's a report being made, doesn't have to end up at a police station with a uniform rank. You don't want that. So there's a process in-house that is going to be built where the child is going to be treated with professionals who are trained in child psychology and trained to deal with juveniles. And so they're once again removed from that criminal system, and the connotation of criminality is removed from their psyche when they are treated in this manner. These are all provided for in the Juvenile Justice Act. So it's implementing provisions that are already there. Yes, to kickstart a new way of treating with our juveniles. Yeah.
Okay. And final question for me, Minister, and it has to do with road safety. Big sensitive issue for most of us here. And we've seen that minibus drivers and truck drivers have been categorized as some of the most lawless drivers on the road, rather. Can you say how effective the city cameras have been in ensuring compliance with the traffic laws? And what else is on the cards to demonstrate that the government is serious about clamping down on road carnage?
The cameras have been very effective. We have seen, especially in the congested areas, the city cameras, we've seen people who are parking lawlessly without regard for other people, just on the road, just leaving the car on the road. Those things are able to be picked up from the cameras, and we send them, tickets are being sent to them. The cars have been, clamps have been put on the cars. That program, that campaign has actually started to ramp up some more.
Yeah, I've seen many photos.
Good.
Clamped vehicles. Yeah.
That is good. So that is an actual, and that is not from before. You used to have to wait for somebody to call and say, "Oh, well, I'm seeing a car parked." I think no, we have the cameras. We're going to identify you on the camera, that this person, and the cameras are the focus will be on the areas where there's the largest number of infractions, and so it's usually the city area. The traffic violation in terms of the speeding is at a little more nuanced approach rather than just police enforcement. Because like I said, the police have started to ramp up enforcement, being able to catch people who are speeding. The ticketing system, we've had thousands and thousands of tickets issued. So the other kinds of approaches that are needed in terms of culture, this lawless culture. Again, these are such a caring people. I don't know how we become like this on the road.
Correct.
And to reverse that, with education, starts from the school. You treat each other with care. You treat other road users with care. The speeding also. What you found, you mentioned truck drivers. When I got into, took on this portfolio, I realized that there were too many applications for waiver from very young people for the requirement for the 2-year or 5-year requirement to drive a motor lorry. So I believe what was happening is that too many young people were allowed to drive these huge canters and the big vehicles without the requisite training. And but I understand the need at the time, because we were in a construction boom. We were out of truck drivers, and so we needed to have more drivers on the road. But I believe that needs to be scaled back. They need to have the requisite training, and so those waivers have been slowed down. They have not been granted.
Them.
It's going to be in the insistence that if you don't, you have to have the necessary number of years before you can qualify, and just to dial back this scourge of too many young, untrained drivers driving
especially
the
the trucks, because
yes.
it's huge and you have to be able to manage it.
You have to be able.
And
yes.
some of them in accidents, you've seen the drivers in their teenage years, 18, 19, sometimes 17, young as 17. So
That's right.
those waivers come on your desk?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And how many have you received since you've taken up the post?
I think the message, with the first 2 weeks, it was too many. I think the message was sent very quickly that I was not doing them anymore.
Okay.
So I don't see them
so
coming.
many.
Yes.
So that means they're
many.
going to the training. They're getting the training.
Yes. The commissioner and I have had that discussion. We're saying that they are going to. You got to make sure that they go to the training before they get any. Before they can apply for a motor lorry license. Yes.
Minister, it has been an honor and a privilege to speak to you today. I have learned so much, and I'm very happy to hear about the work that you're doing at the ministry. I'm hoping next year we could sit here and talk more as
Yes.
you get your feet much more deeper at the Ministry of Home Affairs. To our viewers and our listeners, thank you so much. This has been an episode of Starting Point. I'm Fareeza Haniff. Take care.
Thanks for watching Starting Point. Follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for critical updates and exclusive content.